Hare Krishna. Would like to welcome all of you back again to the Ram Katha. Before I start speaking from the Ramayana, I'd like to tell you all a story. One time, Parvati Devi, who was the daughter of the Parvat, she was called Parvat Putri, the daughter of the Himalayas. So she was performing intense tapasya to please Lord Shiva, to have her as her husband, have him as her husband. So when she was doing this intense tapasya, Lord Shiva himself came dressed as a old Brahmana to just test her determination and her desire. He told her, "Why are you wasting time worshipping this Shiva?" He said, "This Shiva is so inauspicious. Everything about him is inauspicious. Look at where he stays. Does anybody stay in the cemetery? So inauspicious." And he said, "Look at what he wears. Does anyone wear snakes on his body? It's so inauspicious." And he said, "Look at how he dresses. All dirty clothes. So inauspicious." So, and he said, "Look at his associates. All ghosts and hobgoblins. What kind of association is this? So inauspicious." So Shiva, who was disguised in the form of this Brahmana, told her, "Don't get married to him. Don't waste your life. Find somebody much better than him." And Parvati, when she heard this, she got very upset. She said, "No matter what you say, the only person I'll marry in my life is Lord Shiva. I've decided that, And she was like really, really determined. And she told him, "How dare you discredit Lord Shiva? He is the most amazing person." Like that, Parvati was glorifying Shiva. So when Shiva heard her glorification, he really felt touched. And he showed his original form and he told her, "Let's get married." And then Parvati and Shiva get married. They spend good amount of time together. And one day they were in the Mansarovar lake. While they were at Mansarovar, Parvati asked Shiva, "See, when you came long back to test me, I told you that I am very determined to marry you only. But I still have a doubt. How come you are living in such an inauspicious place? And how come you are having such dirty, clothes and dirty association, I suddenly have a doubt. How come your name is Shiva?" The word Shiva means most auspicious. Mangala. So she asked him, that time I said all that, but now I have a doubt, Can you tell me how exactly should I understand this? And then Shiva explained, one of the names of Vishnu is Shiva. In the Vishnu Sahasranam, one of the 1,000 names of Shiva in the Vishnu Sahasranam. So Shiva says, because I meditate on Shiva, that means he's meditating on Lord Vishnu, basically. Because I meditate on him, everything about me is auspicious. I might be staying in the dirtiest place, but because I'm meditating on him, chanting the names of Lord Vishnu, therefore that unholy place also has become auspicious. And because I'm chanting the names of the Lord, therefore whatever is around me, which apparently seems inauspicious, actually becomes auspicious. And therefore Shiva meditates on Shiva. And by that, the meditation is a little different, right? And of course, we all know that Lord Shiva is constantly chanting the names of Ram. Rama Rama Rameti, Rame Rame Manorame, Sahasranama Tattulyam, Rama Nama Varanane. Lord Shiva himself tells Parvati. And he says, if you chant 1,000 names of Vishnu, it is equivalent to chanting one name of Ram. We just say Ram, Vishnu Sahasranam is over. That's all. And if we chant 3 names of Ram, is equivalent to chanting one name of Krishna. Say Krishna, You're actually chanting Vishnu Sahasranam 3 times. Yeah. So those who don't have time to do full Vishnu Sahasranam, which takes 20-25 minutes, you can just take Krishna once and you're chanting 3 times whole Vishnu Sahasranam literally. So, understanding the auspiciousness of Ram, Ram Nam and Ram Katha, let us begin today's very, very important and defining discussion and this Katha of the Ramayana. Most people, they only know a very, very basic of this discussion that we're going to have today. Over the next, today morning, today evening, and then tomorrow morning, we're going to have very detailed discussion of this little episode. If you hear this little episode, most of the times the entire episode gets over in 2 minutes, literally. But we're going to spend like hours discussing on this little episode of the Ramayana. So please pay attention and please understand. Of all the sections of the Ramayana, this section is considered to be the most intense because this section invokes intense emotions in the heart. This section invokes very intense feelings in the heart. And this section is considered to be a very, very powerful and a defining section of the Ramayana. Yesterday, we discussed about how Dasharatha Maharaj gives the news to Lord Ram that he is being coronated as the king of Ayodhya the next morning. After he gives the news to Lord Ram, Dasharatha Maharaj goes back into his room. Lord Ram leaves back to his palace. And Dasharatha Maharaj again is spending a sleepless night. The previous night he had that dream and so much disturbance. And he saw himself in the mirror and the grey hair on his ears spoke to him, right? Today evening, 24 hours later, again he is standing himself in front of the same mirror. And this time, the Acharyas explained, the grey hair of Ravan, of Dasharatha Maharaj's head, it is explained, the sins of Ravan are born as a grey hair on Dasharatha Maharaj's head. The Acharyas give a little different purport over here. So, yesterday they said that grey hair is speaking to him and the grey hair is telling him to quit the kingdom and give the kingdom to Ram. Today, the grey hair is different. The grey hair is all the sins of Ravan accumulated together in the form of grey hair on Dasharatha's head. Means what? What does it mean? It means that decision that Dasharatha took to make Ram as a king, it was an impulsive decision. It was a quick, impulsive decision. But that impulsive decision was actually not to make Ram the king, because no question of Ram becoming the king now. The whole impulsive decision was to send Ram to the forest. So that Ram goes and eventually kills Ravan. So the sins of Ravan became the grey hair on the Dasharatha Maharaj's head and inspires him to do whatever he did. So Dasharatha Maharaj, he was like this, very intensely meditating on what he needs to do the next day. But at the same time, in his mind, there was a lot of disturbance going on because he knew that night anything can happen. In another corner of Ayodhya, I am giving you 3 descriptions of 3 different places in Ayodhya and 3 different happenings. In another corner of Ayodhya, Manthara was on the terrace of Kaikeyi's palace and she was looking at the celebration in Ayodhya. It is explained that the celebrations of Ayodhya was so intense. Everyone was dancing and singing. All over the country there was decorations. Every nook and corner of the country was cleaned up and so much of festivity was happening. Manthara had never seen this level of festivity in the last so many years. Almost last 24 years. Manthara had not seen this level of festival. The last time she had saw this level of festival was when Ram was born. After that, now she's seeing this level of festival. So she is not able to understand why so much festivity just suddenly overnight. Because she had not heard the news that Ram is going to be coronated as the king of Ayodhya the next morning. Because it was just such a quick thing, right? Eventually, Manthara got to know that the next morning Ram is going to be the king of Ayodhya. And immediately she got so disturbed. She was totally disturbed with this thought that Ram is going to be the king of Ayodhya the next day. Now somebody might wonder, why is she so disturbed? Many explanations are given. One Acharya gives an explanation. It said that when Ram was a small child, Ram and his brothers, they were playing in the garden of Ayodhya. And while they were playing in the garden, they were playing with mud balls. Small children make balls of mud and have play throwing around and all that. So they had made mud balls. And Ram put one mud ball on one arrow. And he was just looking where to shoot. At that time Manthara was walking by. So Manthara is a hunchback woman. So she's a little bent, and she has a hunchback. So Ram shot the arrow at the hunch of Manthara. The arrow didn't harm her in any way. The mud ball hit Manthara's back and the mud ball blasted, So the mud just splashed all over and all the children, they started laughing like anything. See, for small children, there's no concept of, what is good fun and what is bad fun. For them, fun is fun, They just enjoy in all types of ways, basically. Adults need to understand that they are just having fun. It's not that children keep, in mind that I want to harm this person or anything like that. It's just their way of having fun. And in the process, they might, hurt somebody, they might, do something that might seem hurtful. But that's not their intention at all. Their hearts are so clean. Manthara, when she experienced this, and everybody started laughing. And of course, at that point in time, the children were throwing mud at Kaikeyi also, they were throwing mud at Kaushalya also, they were throwing mud at everybody basically, The others didn't mind it. But Manthara, she was so disturbed in her heart. She kept that in her mind for 20 years. See, there are some people you should not have fun with. Humor. Correct. See? So there are some people you should not have fun with. Humor doesn't work on them. In fact, it backfires. So if you know somebody is a very serious type of person, please don't go and try to create humor in their life. It doesn't exist. If you create humor in their life, that humor also they'll analyze it. They'll take it seriously. And this is what an overthinker is, isn't it? So the overthinker needs some reason to be miserable. And your humor may be that very reason for them to become miserable. So when you know somebody is an overthinker and unnecessarily getting into very serious type of person, don't go and unnecessarily interfere over there. In his entire life, Ram only had humor 2 times. One is here, and one is when Shurpanakha came. He made a little fun, And those 2 times Ram created humor costed him so much. Krishna creates humor every day. Nothing happens to him. He is absolutely fine. He creates humor, he makes fun of everybody, he does whatever mischief he wants, he gets away with it. But when Ram makes fun, only 2 times in his entire life. And those 2 times costed him the most. Therefore, there are some people who should not be made fun of, and there are some people who should not make fun also. Ram is a serious person. Humor doesn't suit him. So many times, when you are a serious person, humor doesn't work in your life only. When you try to create some humor, it backfires on you itself. Anyway, so Manthara kept this for 20 years in her mind. Imagine that. So that's the nature of the human mind. The human mind, the memory of a human being is very interesting. Some people use that memory to store good information. Store knowledge of the scriptures, store knowledge of so many holy places, store knowledge of so many insights in the scriptures. And there are some people that use that memory to store things that I've heard them, people that I've heard them, words that I've heard them. They can tell you exactly on what date, what time, who said whom, said what, Capacity to remember. But all of us have the choice, what we want to remember. If we choose to remember all the bad things, that's what will keep coming back to us. And if you choose to remember all the positive things, such beautiful things in this world, that's what will keep coming back to us. Manthara chose to remember this, of all the things in the world, And then she ran down to meet her queen, Kaikeyi. It is explained, Manthara, as she was running down the fleet of stairs from the terrace of the building, it is said, Valmiki uses the word yadrichaya. This word yadrichaya is used in the scriptures many times. Yadrichaya, the word yadrichaya means accidentally. That's what the word yadrichaya means. So when Shurpanaka comes, again Valmiki uses the same word, yadrichaya. Accidentally she came there. So in certain points in the scriptures, in many places in the scriptures, you will find this word yadrichaya being used. Nothing happens by accident. Everything is the plan of the Lord only. So whenever you hear the word yadrichaya in the scripture, you know it's not accident. It is the plan of the Lord. It is the divine will of the Lord. That is the divine will of the Lord. The Manthara was standing on the terrace that day at that point. If she was not standing in the terrace at that point in time, the whole Ramayana would not have happened only. And Manthara, she began to run down the terrace. See, she is a hunchback woman. She can't run so fast. But still she was running down the terrace. The Acharyas explained, the sins of Ravan were pushing her. The sins of Ravan were pushing her to run down fast. Everything in this world is very complicated, isn't it? It is not exactly black and white. You might say that this is Manthara's fault. No, there are so many factors that are behind one person's actions, basically. So, when she goes down, she says, she sees Kaikeyi lying down on her bed. And she was lying down in a very, very relaxed, calm, cool manner. So now we saw the scene in Dasharatha Maharaj's palace. He was very disturbed. He was looking at himself in the mirror, and the white hair of Dasharatha were speaking to him, and the sins of Ravan were urging him to act. We saw the scene in Kaikeyi's palace. Manthara was getting so agitated, so disturbed, and so bewildered. And now we're going to see the scene in Ram's palace. So Ram has got the news that he's going to be the king the next day morning. He comes back to his palace. He tells Sita about this news. Ram and Sita spent the entire night in prayers. They fast. The whole night they are both fasting. And they are performing yagyas, sacrifices, sacrificial fires. And Ram and Sita are discussing about their future role now. So Ram is telling Sita that now they are expected to take on more responsibility. So Ram tells Sita that in this role that we are going to take up, there is a lot of sacrifice expected out of us. And that's what the whole idea of, see, yajna in Sanskrit, yajna, when you translate it into English, it means sacrifice, isn't it? So when you sit in front of a fire, in front of a yajna kund, the reminder that we need to really give ourselves is that my life is a sacrifice. It's a responsibility. It's a sacrifice for the sake of upliftment of others. Any yajna is always done for the betterment of other people. So, Ram is reminding Sita about how important it is for them to ready themselves mentally for the sacrifices that they are going to come, the responsibilities they are going to undertake. And then Ram and Sita spend the entire night preparing themselves. Just outside the palace of Ram, the citizens of Ayodhya are having a great time. They are jumping in joy. There is so much dancing, festival, music, lights, decorations. Everyone is wearing beautiful dresses. There is a celebration all night long there. Inside the palace of Ram, it's very sober. There is no celebration there. A very, very sober atmosphere. They're preparing themselves for responsibility. And outside the palace, all the citizens are happy and having fun. Look at this. Ideally, in a place where the leader is sober, responsible, and serious about his service, the world can enjoy. And in a place where, nowadays, if you look at, houses of leaders, they are having fun inside. And outside everybody is crying, isn't it? That's the today's situation, It's called Ravan Raj, technically, So in Ravan Raj, the king inside is enjoying and the people outside are suffering. And in Ram Raj, the king inside is sober and preparing for responsibility. And therefore the citizens outside can have fun. That's the kind of difference between, the two mindsets. So Ram and Sita prepare themselves for what is to come. In the meanwhile, Manthara comes down and she sees Kaikeyi is sleeping peacefully. It is explained that the demigods who really wanted Ravan to be killed very quickly, they sent Saraswati to sit on the tongue of Manthara and speak some words. And now, the discussion that is happening between Manthara and Kaikeyi is inspired by two factors. One, it is inspired by Manthara herself, her envy, her insecurity. And the second, it is inspired by the sins of Ravan, which is sponsored by the demigods over here through Mother Saraswati. Saraswati is sitting on the tongue of Manthara and speaking some words. So she looks at Kaikeyi sleeping peacefully and she runs to her. And Valmiki gives an amazing explanation. He says, Manthara runs to Kaikeyi like an evil planet runs to destroy someone. Grahas, they change their shape, right? So when a graha comes and attacks you, or a graha is staring at you in the wrong direction, all kinds of bad things happen in your life. So Valmiki compares Manthara to be an evil planet that is running towards Kaikeyi. So she catches hold of Kaikeyi's feet and she shakes Kaikeyi, shakes her up to wake her up. And Kaikeyi is like fast asleep. Manthara shouts at her. She says, "Get up, you fool!" Imagine, this is the queen of the land, and she is a servant over here, But the relationship that Manthara and Kaikeyi have is such a relationship that she can take the liberty of calling the queen itself a fool. So it is explained that Kaikeyi had a difficult childhood. Her mother was not there for most of her childhood, and Manthara only brought her up, literally. So the relationship between Manthara and Kaikeyi is not just exactly of servant and mistress, but she also has a motherly connection to Kaikeyi. So Manthara, she shakes her up and wakes up Kaikeyi. And when she wakes up Kaikeyi, Kaikeyi gets up and Manthara tells her, just like the moon keeps sharing its cooling rays, but it is not aware that the poisonous Rahu is approaching it. The moon is totally unaware. The Rahu is coming towards it. The moon keeps sharing its cooling rays. Similarly, you are sleeping over here without any awareness that Rahu is approaching you. A very disturbing calamity is approaching you. Kaikeyi gets up and first thing she tells her, I have 4 sons. Why should I worry? She says, a woman who has 4 sons, why should she worry? And he is going back to sleep. Manthara tells her, you are sleeping. You are sleeping just like a person who is sleeping in his house, unaware that there is a flash flood coming and he's going to drag away the whole house only. When the morning when you get up, your house only now will not exist. You will not exist. And you are busy sleeping over here. So, obviously those who are from Chennai, they would have experienced it recently. Sleep. Yeah. Water came in your house? Okay, very good. So, many people, when they were sleeping in the night, everything was fine. Suddenly in the middle of the night, all water all around them. It's just so strange, isn't it? So, Manthara is giving this example. And Manthara tells Kaikeyi, Dashrath is showing off to the whole world that you are his favorite queen. But in reality, he loves Kaushalya more. And today what he has done is enough to prove that he loves Kaushalya much more than you. And you are just going to suffer. So she tells her, you have been carrying a poisonous snake in your cloth. And you have been showering this poisonous snake with so much love, so much affection. And you don't know that you have been nourishing this poisonous snake with your love. And now that the snake has become very powerful, it is going to bite you and destroy you. And the name of that snake is Dashrath. Imagine, if you have counselors like this doing marriage counseling, that's it. And then she tells him, you are so stupid to think that you have full control over your husband. But you are completely wrong. Kaushalya has completely monetized Dashrath. And so he showers you with sweet words, but when it comes to action, he benefits Kaushalya more. And he says that the king outwardly is truthful, but inwardly is very cunning. And he says, despite being born in a royal family, how can you be so stupid that you can't understand these things? Kaikeyi is, first of all, in a very sleepy mood over here. Imagine you're waking up someone in a sleepy mood and giving all this kind of stuff. So she tells him, why don't you just talk clearly? Just tell me clearly what you want to say. So then Manthara says, Dashrath has decided to appoint that useless Ram as a king. Imagine, the whole world thinks Ram is so power great, and Kaikeyi is convinced that Manthara is convinced that he is useless. What it really means is that no matter who you are, there will be some people who will not be happy with you. That's a fact. So even if you are Ram, you can't make everybody happy. So don't try also, basically. So Manthara says, he has decided to make that incompetent son of Kaushalya as a king. And the entire Solar dynasty is embarrassed about this person's sinful acts. And he says, he has killed a woman with his arrow. How can such a person be made a king? Whom she is talking about? Tataka. Ram killed a demoness named Tataka. And she is calling that as killing a woman. This is how journalism works. Isn't it? This is how news reporters report it. See, there is something news over here, and if you report it like this, then Ram becomes sinful, isn't it? She is telling her, this person is not worth being a king because he killed a woman. She didn't tell what that woman Tataka has done. All the demonic activities Tataka has done, that she didn't tell. Only this much, that she is a woman and Ram killed her. And then she says that you can imagine how stupid Dashrath is to appoint such an unqualified person as a king. Kaikeyi jumps up out of her bed. She hugs Manthara. She takes out her necklace and gives it to Manthara. She says, what a news that my son Ram is going to be the king of Ayodhya. she becomes so happy. It's very interesting, right? Manthara is trying to tell her something, but Kaikeyi is understanding something else only. This is what happens when you don't have envy in your heart. This is what happens when you have a pure heart. You can only see good things, what others are saying. So Kaikeyi in the beginning, she had such a pure heart that even though Manthara is trying to poison her, Kaikeyi is looking at the good part that she's talking about. She's saying Ram is going to be the king. She becomes so happy, basically. And she says, why are you contradicting yourself by saying that Ram is going to become the king and not my son? Ram is my son, she says. So Manthara, she is remembering this, incident about how Ram had, insulted her. So she becomes very angry with Kaikeyi because she is not able to understand. Why she is not able to understand her point of view? See, the nature of envy is that envy tries to encompass more people. When somebody is envious, the envious person is not happy being envious alone. They want to make 2-3 others also envious along with them. That's the nature of envy. The nature of envy is it tries to embrace more people. See, when you are not envious, when you're positive, when you're looking at people with a good viewpoint, you don't try to change others' opinions and behaviors, because you're more concerned about how you behave, how you think, how you act. But a nature of envious person is that they feel so insecure that they feel happy only when more people are envious. Because more people are envious, they feel confident that I am right. So Manthara was so disturbed. Why is she not understanding what I am trying to say? Manthara, she begins to shed tears profusely. She hits her own head hard. And then she pulls out her hair. She tears her clothes. And then she takes the necklace that Kaikeyi gave her and bangs it so hard on the ground that it creates a dent on the marble floor. And the whole jewel, it breaks all over the room. And Manthara says, you are in an ocean of troubles. Your position is like is like that of a boat that is being that is in a very, very turbulent ocean. And Manthara says, your laughter is like a drill into that hole, into that boat. All the water of the ocean outside is going to come into your boat and subside your boat. You keep laughing. And she says, a stepson and a co-wife are a woman's greatest enemies. And she says, if you act properly today, you will not only save yourself, but you will also save me from a great calamity. What is Manthara talking about? See, this actually reveals Manthara's true intention. So far, Kaikeyi is the queen, the favorite queen of Dasharath. And being the servant of the favorite queen, Manthara gets a lot of benefits, isn't it? It's called fringe benefits, And if Kaushalya becomes the queen mother, Ram becomes the king and Kaushalya becomes the queen mother, Kaikeyi is no one. And if Kaikeyi is no one, Manthara also is no one. No one servant is no one at all. So Manthara is thinking, if you understand what I am saying, not only you will get saved, I will also get saved, she is saying. This is the nature of insecurity, right? See, apparently she seems to be thinking from the benefit of Kaikeyi, but ultimately people only think about themselves. Ultimately, people only think about themselves. They package their benefit in showing that this is beneficial for you. So, Kaikeyi, Manthara says, if not, very soon you will become Kaikeyi's maid servant and we will become servant of the servant. And your son will become Ram's servant. And she says, Ram's wives will be happy to see him in this power and position. And your daughter-in-law will become so sad to see Bharat in a very bad situation. And over here, it's very interesting. Manthara makes another big assumption. You know what is the assumption Manthara makes? The assumption that Manthara makes is that she's telling here Ram's wives, plural, she says, wives will not be happy because they will be miserable. Now she has already made an assumption that Ram is going to marry multiple times like Dasharath Maharaj. So look at this. This thing has not even happened and she is making assumptions over here. That's how the whole thing works, you know. When you start finding fault with others, you start making more and more assumptions about their badness. And in your mind, you create such a massive empire of badness about the other person, you cannot see anything good in that person. So, Manthara says, Ram will abuse his brothers with his position and he will serve and protect his father. And Ram is Dasharath's eldest son. So, here something very interesting happens. So, Kaikeyi, she tells Manthara, you are talking about, Ram cannot be the king or should not be the king. But Ram is the eldest son in Dasharath's, in this dynasty. And the Suryavansh dynasty, it is very closely following the life of peacocks, she says. And the laws of peacock is very, very interesting. It is explained, so Kaikeyi tells this to Manthara. She says, in a pride of peacocks, in a family of peacocks, there are many eggs that get laid simultaneously. But only the first egg that gets laid grows its wings first. So he said, this is nature. The laws of nature is that the first one that is born gets the wings first. And naturally the first one that gets born and gets the wings first, that person gets more privilege. Ram is born first. Naturally he'll become the king. So Kaikeyi is trying to inspire Manthara to see it logically. Manthara says, if anybody else had said this, what you are telling, I would have cut their tongue. Manthara is telling Kaikeyi like this, And he says, you are actually, so Kaikeyi, Manthara is telling Kaikeyi, actually you are the enemy of your son and yourself. Then Kaikeyi telling Manthara, my son, if you actually see, Bharat didn't live in Ayodhya at all, literally. Right now also Bharat is not in Ayodhya. Where is Bharat? He's in Kaikeyi Desh. He's in Kaikeyi's father's home, his grandfather's home. Kaikeyi tells Manthara, actually, Ram has served me more than my son has ever served me. Kaikeyi is telling Manthara like that, So he's saying, why should I be envious of such an adorable child? He has taken care of me more than my own son. Manthara tells Kaikeyi, if everything is so innocent as you are talking, why did Dasharath send away Bharat to Kaikeyi Desh and not keep him along with him? And why is Dasharath keeping Ram along with him all the time, not sending him anywhere? Did you ever think like that? So you can't think because you are so innocent. Manthara tells Kaikeyi, actually, Bharat is the only competition for Ram. In fact, he has equal right to Ram over the throne because they were born the same day. And as far as Lakshman is concerned, Lakshman is a servant of Ram. He doesn't have a brain of his own. So he can't think only. He is like sold out to Ram, so he will just do whatever Ram says. And Shatrugna doesn't exist only. She tells like that. He is a non-entity. He doesn't exist. So there is no competition of Shatrugna with Ram. The only real competition of Ram is Bharat. And therefore, Dasharatha sent Bharat away from Ayodhya. So now, Valmiki, at this point in time, he calls Manthara with a very interesting name. He calls Manthara as Vakya Visharada. Vakya Visharada means someone who is wise in her words. She knows to use words in a way that can change a person's mindset. See, being Vakya Visharada is not wrong. But if you are going to use words to uplift a person's life, that is very good use of words. But if you are going to use your words to manipulate somebody's life and make them do all the wrong things, that is the wrong use of words. And therefore, Kaikeyi, she starts thinking. She says, Ram will rule the kingdom for a few years and surely hand over the kingdom to Bharat after some time. Manthara says, you are only beautiful but you have no brain only. He tells Kaikeyi, you are very beautiful but you don't have any brains. And he says, so far your beauty has helped you get all success. But from now onwards, your beauty is not going to help you. Your intelligence only will help you. He says, kingship is for life. Bharat and his descendants will all be servants. And they will all be servants chained to the throne of Ayodhya. You say your son will be the servant, and not only your son, all the sons of Bharat, all the descendants of Bharat in future will also be servants. And if you say the senior most person should be the king, then why is Dashrath making Ram the king while he is still alive? He is the most senior. What logic she uses here? The crazy logic she uses basically. And then she says, she tells her, there are 3 reasons why you should follow my advice. The first reason will save you. The second reason will save your son. And the third reason will save your father. Manthara talks about 3 most important weaknesses of a woman. The 3 most important weaknesses of a woman are self-respect, her son, her children, and her parents, father especially, And Manthara makes Kaikeyi so insecure about all these 3 aspects. The moment she says that, Kaikeyi becomes attentive because she is concerned about all these 3 things. She says, all your life you have been so proud of your beauty that you have always been making fun of Kaushalya and ill-treating Kaushalya. And now, Kaushalya has patiently tolerated you for so many years. But once Ram becomes a king, she is going to take revenge. After Ram becomes a king, the full control of the treasury will be with Kaushalya. And even if you want to give charity, you have to go and beg Kaushalya. What will happen to you? What will happen to your self-respect? And what will happen to all the pride that you showed in Ayodhya so far? That shakes up Kaikeyi. Because, that's very important for a woman, right? Self-respect. Looking at what she stands for. And then she says, the second reason, your son Bharat, although you are Bharat's mother, you have been so busy enjoying the comforts of the palace that you didn't plan for Bharat's security. She says, look at Kaushalya, how smart she is. All her life, she has been planning for this day. She has kept Ram with her and made sure Ram is constantly with Dashrath so that he wins Dashrath's heart. And you, like a fool, you have sent your son to your father's house. And he has not had a chance to develop a relationship with his father at all. And now, Kaushalya has been sharpening a sword a dagger for so many years. And the name of the dagger is Ram. And now that the dagger is so sharp, she is going to plunge it on your back. So Kaikeyi starts becoming very disturbed. And she says, the moment Ram becomes a king, Ram and Lakshman will chase Bharat into the forest and kill him like an animal. If you want to protect your son, tell him not to come back only to Ayodhya. Let him stay there only. If he comes here, he'll be dead. And then she tells Kaikeyi, at least now understand Ram is your enemy. And then she says the third reason, your father Ashwapati. She tells her that your father Ashwapati has one big enemy, And the biggest enemy of your father is a king named Janak, the father of Mother Sita. And he says, and she tells her, that so far Janak and Ashwapati have not fought with each other, even though they are bitter enemies. You know why? Because Dasharath has been standing in between. Dasharath is the son-in-law of Ashwapati, but Dasharath is also the best friend of Janak Maharaj. Because Dasharath is standing right in between them, the two of the biggest enemies, they have not fought with each other. But Janak is just waiting for a chance to kill your father, Ashwapati. The moment Dasharath steps down from the throne and Ram becomes the king, Ram does not have a relationship with your father. He only has a relationship with Janak Maharaj. And therefore Janak will attack your kingdom and he will finish off your father. Your father will be dead. And then she says the last ultimate thought. She says, do you know that in tomorrow's coronation, everybody has been called except two people. The only two people that have not been called is Janak Maharaj and Ashwapati. Why the two of them have not been called? Because Dasharath does not want them to fight in the court only, in the marriage or rather in the coronation ceremony itself. Only two of them have not been called. And she asks him, why the two of them have not been called? Go and ask Dasharath. And then suddenly, when Kaikeyi hears all this, she starts shouting, you are my savior! You are my savior! She really becomes so amazed by Manthara. She says, you have saved me from falling off a cliff. And she says, the rug named Dasharath, which I have been standing on, depending on so many years, has been pulled off my feet now. And now I know for sure that you are my only well-wisher. And then she says, so far I have been treating you as a maid servant. That has been my biggest mistake. I should have actually been treating you as my advisor, she tells her. Interestingly, Kalidas gives a very interesting analogy in this particular juncture of the Ramayana. Amazing analogy. He says, so far, Kaikeyi has been like a shallow pond. Now, just imagine this scene, okay? Kalidas says, so far, Kaikeyi has been like a shallow pond of water. The shallow pond has crystal clear water. Very, very crystal clear water. And into this shallow pond ran a buffalo named Manthara. When this buffalo named Manthara ran into the shallow pond, all the mud from below came up. And now the whole pond has become muddy. The pond named Kaikeyi has become fully muddy and fully contaminated. What an example, isn't it? What an example. So graphic, isn't it? Calling Manthara buffalo, of all things. And then Kaikeyi tells Manthara that my illusion is now shattered. I am ready to follow your advice. He says, guide me, O noble person, just like a stick guides a blind person. And she says, guide me with your wisdom. Give me the intelligence by which I can conquer Dasharath and I can make my son as a king of Ayodhya. So it is explained that Kaikeyi is compared to a Chandrakanta stone. There is a particular stone called Chandrakanta stone. When the moon falls, the moon beams, the light of the moon falls on the Chandrakanta stone, it starts melting. The stone starts melting, basically. So she says, but when the stone is there, but the stone is surrounded by weeds and creepers, the moonlight cannot fall on this stone, So similarly, Kaikeyi is now covered by this creeper named Manthara. And because she has been covered by this creeper named Manthara, her heart is not melting with the glories of Lord Ram, which are like the moonshine. What a beautiful comparison, isn't it? So many times in our lives we find that we are we are sometimes covered over by some creepers. And this is what the word aparad is all about. If you understand the word aparad or offenses, why do our acharyas so many times talk about not offending devotees, not offending other Vaishnavas, not speaking bad about others? Because that is like a creeper. Our hearts are like Chandrakanta stone. They have the potential of melting when we hear the Lord's glories, when we hear the Lord's names. It has the potential of melting. But when the heart, which is like a Chandrakanta stone, is covered over by creepers, it does not melt. No matter how much moonshine comes on it, no matter how much you chant the holy names, no matter how much katha you hear, no matter how much you read, no matter how much you study scriptures, your heart won't melt. Why? Because there's a creeper that is covering over, So when we hear bad about other devotees, when we hear offensive things about other devotees, the problem is that we love gossip. That's the problem. The problem is that we love gossip, and we only go and ask, is there any new news? Is there anything new happening? Can you tell me something? So we are looking for such masala. We're looking for such kind of offensive stuff because the heart, we feel, gets nourished by such offensive things. Unfortunately, that's the reality of life, isn't it? So we do it outside in the material world, because in the material world it's all about gossip, isn't it? It's all about talking about each other, isn't it? When people go to parties and marriages, what do you think they're talking? They're all talking about ill about other people. That's all the material world is. But unfortunately, when you come in the association of devotees also, we end up doing the same thing. But this time, when we are in the material world, we talk bad about others, that's fine. But when we come into the spiritual world and talk bad about devotees, that's really bad. That's like that creeper that covers over the Chandrakanta stone, and the Chandrakanta stone cannot melt. So let us remember from this incident that we should be like a heart that is not covered by the creeper named Manthara, the creeper named hearing the offenses of about other people. The day you start hearing, your heart will stop melting. And you will experience it yourself. No taste in the holy name, no taste in katha, no taste in your spiritual journey. And the day you stop hearing offenses, from that day your heart starts melting. Now Manthara she has completely taken over Kaikeyi. And Manthara, she tells Kaikeyi, so now Kaikeyi is ready to listen, right? In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was speaking many things in the beginning, and then finally he decides that I can't use my intelligence. He tells Krishna, Shishyasteham Shadimam Sam Tvam Prapannam. He says, I totally surrender to you. Then Bhagavad Gita begins. Now Manthara Gita is going to begin. Kaikeyi has taken shelter. Now Manthara is going to start her Gita. I mean, it's very interesting. Real knowledge, real stuff comes only when you take shelter. You take shelter of bad person also, they will give you the real stuff after that. And you take shelter of good people also, they will give you the real stuff after that. Here now, Kaikeyi is surrendered to Manthara. Then Manthara starts speaking the real stuff. She tells Kaikeyi, the answer to your question lies in some good that you have done in the past. She says, the gift that you are looking for lies in your past. Good deeds done in your past always help you during your calamities. And she tells, long back, Dashrath had given you 2 boons. This is the time to redeem them. Kaikeyi had forgotten only about the 2 boons, but Manthara remembers. Imagine, this is like decades back. But Manthara remembers, long back, Kaikeyi had been given 2 boons by Dashrath. So she says, with those 2 boons, first boon, claim the kingdom for your son. And the second boon, you make sure that Ram goes to the forest for 14 years. Manthara is encouraging Kaikeyi to change her relationship with Dashrath from that of love to that of a business transaction. You remember yesterday? We were talking about how Kaikeyi was so much grateful and so filled with love. She didn't want anything from Dasharath. But today, Manthara is encouraging her to change that to a transaction. Kaikeyi is amazed. She says, Manthara, how do you remember something that happened so many years before? I myself have forgotten about it. And she says, your hunchback is actually a magic box filled with so many ideas. And she says, you not only have solutions to my problems, you have the solutions to all problems of Ayodhya. And then Manthara tells her, first boon, ask Dasharath to make Bharat the king of Ayodhya instead of Ram. And the second boon, ask him to send Ram to the forest for 14 years. And he explained that why did Manthara specifically say 14 years? There is a logical reason behind that. It is explained that in Kali Yuga, in today's time and age, if a tenant stays in a property for 11 years, they can claim the property as theirs. 12th year onwards, they will say, this is my property. And the owner can't say anything. In Dwapar Yuga, 1 yuga before, it was 13 years, legally. So if you stay in a property for 13 years, you can claim the property be yours. That is why Shakuni sent the Pandavas for 13 years to exile. And in Treta Yuga, it was 14 years. That's why Manthara sent Ram for 14 years to exile. The logic was, after 14 years, if he comes also, Bharat can claim this is my property. Because I've been staying here for 14 years. And the other logic also was that in 14 years, Bharat would have enough time to gain the trust of all the Ayodhya Vasis, to gain the confidence of all the Ayodhya Vasis. And in all probability, after 14 years, they will not want only Ram back. That was her logic behind those 14 years. She said, in 14 years, people will forget Ram. And to convince Dasharath, Manthara says, look at this Ramayana is pure psychology. If you read Ramayana nicely, you don't need to study psychology. All psychology degrees here in Ramayana. Manthara tells Kaikeyi, if you want to convince Dasharath to give you to these two boons, you have to first weaken his heart. She says, a weak heart cannot analyze, cannot think clearly. So he'll be compelled to give whatever you desire. To weaken his heart, Manthara says, I suggest you enter into Kopa Bhavan. Kopa Bhavan is known as sulking chamber. In the days of the past, the palaces of the past, there would be rooms for everything. If you want to dance, there will be one room. If you want to sing, there will be another room. If you want to laugh, there will be another room. If you want to cry, there will be another room. Imagine what for every emotion there is one room basically. And the ambience of the room will be like that. The moment you enter the room, you feel like crying only, automatically. So it's called a sulking chamber basically. So she tells him, you go into the sulking chamber. And the sulking chamber is also called Krodha Graha. Krodha Graha means it's a room of anger. As soon as you enter the room, Dasharath knows she is angry. Nowadays, in the same room, everything happens. You can't make out whether the fellow is angry or, happy or what. It's just so complicated, basically. In the palace of the past, very clear. If you go in this room, means I'm angry, basically, So she says, go into Krodha Graha. And she says, lie down on the floor in a disheveled condition. And as soon as Dasharath enters into the dark room searching for you, begin to cry too much. What? Look at the training that Manthara is giving her, this is heavy psychological training going on over here, So she has begun to cry unceasingly. And don't even look at Dasharath, she says. Don't even care for all the wealth he gives you, all the diamonds he gives you, all the gifts he gives you. And no matter what he gives you, don't care. The moment you see that he is completely helpless and agitated enough to do whatever you say, that is the time you ask for these two boons. Then you will get it. Manthara tells her. And he says, relieved that you have finally expressed your need, Dasharath will just give you whatever you want. And just when he agrees to give you whatever you want, that is the time, plunge these two daggers into his back. Ask these two boons. Manthara is training her like this. Now, Manthara's poisoning is complete. Kaikeyi's consciousness is dead. And Kaikeyi, she says, the hunchback women are generally sad to look at. Their bodies are, unpleasant to look at. But Manthara, you are an exception, Kaikeyi tells her. You are unlike any hunchback I've ever seen in my life. You actually are like a beautiful lotus that is bent. Look at this. She's giving an analogy like this. You are like a beautiful lotus that is bent, You see the lotus stalk sometimes bent like that. She says, you are like that beautiful lotus that is bent over, And she says, your thin waist should be encircled with a golden belt. And she says, when you move, your swinging movements are like a dance, she tells, And then she tells her that when my son becomes the king, a golden garland will adorn your hunchback. And I will put dots of ornament, of beautiful decorations on your forehead. And you are already so beautiful, you will become even more beautiful. And then she tells her, when my son becomes a king, I will make you the queen of all hunchback women in Ayodhya. And then Manthara begins to dance in joy. She's so happy now, completely she's taken over, And suddenly Manthara becomes very, very serious. And she says, the dam has to be constructed before the water passes. She says, go right now and begin what I have told you. There was once a donkey that went to the marriage of a camel. The camel was getting married, This donkey goes to the marriage of the camel and she tells the camel, Aho Rupam, how beautiful you are, how beautiful you are. Is camel beautiful? Yeah. But the donkey is glorifying the camel like that. How beautiful you are, how beautiful you are. The camel becomes so happy, he starts glorifying the donkey. Aho Dhwanim, how Dhwanim. How melodious your voice is, Like this, Kaikeyi and Manthara are glorifying each other, What is this? This is like just such a stupid thing, isn't it? This is Ramayana. There is so much of churning that is going to happen. And now, we are actually reached a point which is the high point of the Ramayana, where Kaikeyi is actually going to do what Manthara says. And it's a massive transformation in the journey of the Ramayana. What Kaikeyi does and how she does it and what exactly happens within that Kopa Bhavan or Krodhagraha, we will see today evening. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.